This is the Art Beauty Podcast where we tell the real truth about the fake shit. Hi, everybody. I'm Amber, and today my fabulous co-host is Allie Egan. She is the founder and CEO of Veracity Skin Health. We're going to be talking all about the fabulous products, very cool, scientific products that are going to look at your hormones. But before we get into all of that, welcome to the show, Allie.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm excited to have you here today. You know, before we get into your skincare line, I'm wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about your background first, because you have a very impressive background, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So I have spent my career in lots of different fun ways, but really building different brands in different ways. So I actually first started on the finance side of things. I was investing in beauty, wellness, health, restaurants, like all those kinds of consumer facing businesses. And through that experience, I found my real passion for what I say being on the other side of the table. And while it's like so cool and amazing to be an investor and think about like what's next in the world, like to me, it's so much cooler to actually be the one creating that and making that happen.
Sure.
Like it's so cool to like theorize on what the next big thing will be, but how do you actually like bring people together and create products? And that's where like my interest really got piqued. So then I went back to business school to kind of, get my second education and start to make that transition. So I went to Harvard for business school and started working for brands. While I was in school, I worked for Glossier and Alice and Olivia and just tried to get like all this experience. And then when I graduated, I went to Estee Lauder companies where I worked at La Mer, Clinique, Origins, and had a fun time really getting into beauty from the operating side.
Sure.
And then the stars kind of aligned and I was introduced to the designer, Cynthia Rowley. And she was looking for someone to help come in and lead her business and try to, kind of revive the brand, put like a strong business model behind it. So I got the opportunity to go be CEO of that business. And theoretically, I was in my dream job. Like literally I had written to myself on like a piece of paper in business school, like I want to be the CEO of a, fashion or beauty brand, blah, blah, blah. And that was what I was doing. But I had gone through some health stuff that ultimately gave me the idea and the inspiration for Veracity and just the conviction to say, I want to do something I feel like is more meaningful. And I'm happy to go into more detail, but
Yeah.
I'll give you the abbreviated version first.
Well, wait, but before we go into your health, first of all, I wanted to say what an impressive background. And that's why I wanted you to kind of wrap it up for our listeners, because I want everybody to know how I was blown away when I read this. I mean, you've really done a little bit of everything and excelled, in some of the biggest brands in the world. So, Veracity, whether or not it's a new brand to the market, whether people have come, whether they know about it or not, has a lot of, creed behind it, right? You've done the work, you know your stuff. But I do think, and if you wouldn't mind now sharing your story, because for listeners who know my story, that you'll understand why this really hit close to home and why I was just very impressed. So if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about how you went from being the CEO at, a major fashion company, essentially your dream job, to transition into creating your own line.
Yeah, of course. So starting actually when I was in business school, I had all of a sudden broken out to eczema-like skin on my face, like really, really dry skin, very alarming. I had always touted myself as thinking I was like oily skin. So it was kind of really out of nowhere. So I saw my dermatologist who assured me it was just something was irritating my skin. Try cutting out some of the products. It will go away. And I did that and it didn't go away. And I basically ended up dealing with this dry skin issue for more than 4 years. Just kind of chalked it up to stress.
I was stress,
starting this,
right?
You're right.
Yeah.
Like you could chalk anything up to stress. So I was like, it's just stress, et cetera. And it would get better and then it would come back. And, that kind of seesaw that a lot of us go through with, aesthetic issues. But then separately, when I was at Cynthia Rowley, after being there for a little bit, my husband and I have been together since college. So, but I was focused on my career. So like a lot of women today, I didn't want to have kids when I was 25 years old. Right. And so when I was at Cynthia, we finally felt like I was a place in my career where I felt safe and I wanted to try to start a family. And so I had a hormonal IUD and I got that taken out, and it was like, oh, okay, now it's going to happen. Well, it didn't happen. And not only did it not happen, but I wasn't getting a regular period. Like something was definitely off. So I found myself in an infertility clinic getting my hormones tested. And that's when they told me that I have Hashimoto's, which is a form of hypothyroidism. That's 50% of women actually suffer from some type of thyroid issue in their lives. Yeah, 50%.
Wow.
I didn't even honestly know what a thyroid was. But even then, and I'm sure this, you can appreciate this given your story, is I was just given a pill and then it was like, all right, we're going to start IVF and here's the deal and whatever. And we went through this crazy long infertility, 2+ years of many rounds of IVF. I had an ectopic pregnancy. I had many failed transfers. I had a miscarriage at about 8-9 weeks. And I was just like a broken person.
Yeah.
And at this point I was like, I got to start like looking into this myself, because what I felt like the care I was getting was just like the same recipe that everyone else was getting. And I was like, they told me I have this disease and then they literally told me nothing about it. So I started looking into it myself, and in all of the medical research, like first page, it's like one of the signs of Hashimoto's is this dry, flaky skin, often on the face. And I was like,
okay,
are you kidding me? It was this like total anger and frustration, because I was like, wow, I had this symptom of this imbalance years prior. And not only was I not able to solve my aesthetic problem, but I wasn't given this important information about my health that now has put me into like a very, dire situation where I feel like, what I've planned for my life is not what's going to happen, and all that kind of stuff. And it just gave me this sort of idea around like, we need to be doing more with these touch points in how we observe our health and take care of ourselves every day. So, of course we need better medical care and stuff, but we also just need to be able to listen to the signs that our body is giving us. And that's kind of how the seeds were sown.
I'm so sorry because, I did 5 rounds of IVF unsuccessfully. I had miscarriages, early miscarriages. It's awful. It's terrible. And I went into it where they were like, nothing's wrong with you. Nothing's wrong with your husband. You're both. I went in the first time, they're like, oh yeah, this is going to happen to staff. It just wasn't in the cards for us. And I've come to make peace with that. But one of the things that I'm curious, with the Hashimoto's, I assume, were you going, and I shouldn't assume anything, but, I feel like whenever I go to my doctors, every couple of years they're doing a hormone test, or maybe it's every year, I get the blood work done, they do the hormone test. Had you been going to regular doctor appointments? Had nobody ever pointed that out to you?
Yeah, exactly. So I had, maybe I was less than a year or whatever, but the issue with hormonal health and women's health in general is things are only looked at on the surface level, and we're only looking for really drastic diseases. So mostly when they do hormonal panel testing, they test for TSH and that's it. And TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. My thyroid stimulating hormone was actually always in normal levels, but then they tested my thyroid antibodies and my actual T3, T4, and that's what was off. So that is only like the second level typically. And so that's why I didn't know about it before.
So who was it who said, let's take a look at your, deeper into your thyroid?
Well, first it was me. I was desperate, and I literally went through, when you're going through IVF, they literally take labs all the time. So I started looking through all of my lab results and literally Googling what it meant and reading different things myself, because I was trying to solve my own problem of getting pregnant. And then I did eventually end up seeking additional care. I ended up seeing a reproductive immunologist. There's literally like maybe a few of them in the country. And I was lucky enough to see a guy here in New York called Jonathan Scher, and he has a totally different philosophy, whereas understanding like Hashimoto's is an inflammatory autoimmune response. And if you don't treat that response, you're not going to have success. And I do like attribute him to now I have 2 kids and because he's actually helping address that underlying root cause.
Sure. Sure. Wow. I mean, this is really, before we get into the skincare part of this, it's a good reminder. And I love having people on here and real women telling their stories, because one of the stories we hear a lot is that you have to be your own best medical advocate. I mean,
100%.
When you're going through IVF or anything else, I mean, I go for regular physicals, but during IVF, I feel like they were taking blood every single day. You're doing DNA testing and yada, 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 but I'm surprised that nobody there, was able to look at you as an individual and not just kind of this, I hate to say a number, but we've all been there. If you've done IVF, if you're kind of just kind of moving through the system. I'm surprised nobody picked that up.
Yeah, it's sad. And I think it's probably similar to your experience, because on paper, I didn't have that much wrong with me. I was in my low 30s. And so they're like, oh, you're kind of a patient that we look for. We're normally, we're seeing these patients who are 48 trying to get pregnant, and that's much harder, obviously. But I think you do have to know what you're specifically dealing with and advocate and ask the right questions. Something I like personally feel very passionate about talking about is it's acknowledging how our medical system is set up too. It's not necessarily even doctors' sort of faults. Like they have like 5 minutes with you in an appointment, but B, like you don't even tell them a lot of times these other things that you're experiencing. So a lot of women will go to their OB or their dermatologist for like a skin problem. And they don't also tell that doctor that like they're having trouble sleeping and they don't want to have sex with their husband or whatever their other kind of symptoms are. Right. So how is a doctor supposed to even give that holistic care if you're not, sharing that information? But it's about knowing like what information to share and how these things are all connected.
Right. Wow. That's a great point. Yeah. Because you would think that when you go to your dermatologist, you're not talking necessarily, like you said, about your sexual health or your sleep behaviors. You're going there for the skin issues. So, really, really interesting. So you did a lot of your own research and you came upon this immunologist, this reproductive immunologist. And was he sort of the one who helped you figure out that was sort of the core of the problem?
Yeah, I do attribute him. And then actually a doctor who's now on our advisory board, Dr. Gabrielle Francis. She is a functional medicine doctor here in New York. And she also did some, full panel hormonal testing and helped me acknowledge like what are some lifestyle changes I can make to help reduce my inflammatory response related to my thyroid imbalance. And for me, the human body is complicated. So you don't always know, do X, then Y happens. But for me, I think one of the major changes I made was taking gluten out of my diet. I saw a massive change in my energy levels, my, gut health, and then as well as I think my inflammatory response that enabled me to have then a successful IVF pregnancy.
Well, congratulations on that. And congratulations, you've got 2 children. Can you then tell us, so what was it, at the time, I'm assuming you were still working at Cynthia Rowley when all this was going on?
Yes. Yep.
So what made you decide to sort of leave this, what you had said before was kind of the dream job, and go and start your own company?
Yeah, I loved working at Cynthia Rowley. It's so fun, as if you know the brand at all. She is really about like fun and embracing. She's kind of like the original, like cool feminist, but not like
totally.
A sort of,
I've interviewed her before, and her here in New York, and she's got her New York. She does like all the patterns and the cutting. We were in her studio there. Very cool.
Yeah, very cool, right? But we're still like, the way you touch women's lives is basically making them feel really good for an event they're going to, or just kind of in for a day at a time in the moment, which is totally admirable as well. But when I started thinking about Veracity and what we could do, it's really like our mission is to empower women on their path to hormonal balance to look and feel their best. And just personally, I'm like, wow, like that feels so meaningful to me that, I'm definitely type A, and I'm going to work my butt off at whatever I do. And doing it with like a sort of bigger payoff that's not just financial meant something to me. And then,
Right.
I had worked in the beauty industry for years, both again as an investor and on the brand side. And I was like, there's actual real like business opportunity here. And to be able to align like personal mission with like business potential, like I feel like doesn't really happen that much. So I was like, if I'm ever going to like take a risk, like I think this is the thing to take a risk for.
Amazing. And so tell us a little bit about, what Veracity is. I know I've got some of the products here, and one of them is a hormonal test, which I think we should get into. But before we get into that, tell us like about the brand Veracity.
Yeah. So, as I mentioned, our mission is to get women on this path to hormonal balance to look and feel their best. It's really bringing a functional whole health approach to beauty and wellness, because what I saw is like the beauty and wellness world talk about health and talk about wellness, but it's so superficial for the most part. It's like, let me take a bubble bath and wear a face mask, which are all great things to do. And I like doing them myself sometimes, but like, ultimately, like if you are healthier, you are going to look and feel better. And so everything we do is based on actual health science with our medical team and published research. And as I said, it's bringing together the power of these different medical specialties into like a cohesive brand offering. So we offer 3 product categories today: our at-home hormone test. So like if you really want to dig in and understand what is going on in your body, that would be the way to go. And then you get, sort of real resources to treat that root cause, from diet, supplementation, exercise, sleep, stress management. And then on the product side, we know that people want to are dealing with all of these symptoms, but both on their skin and with their hair and everywhere else. And so the product, we wanted to treat both the external and the internal. So today we have a line of skincare that is all proven effective, but 100% safe for your hormones and health. So there's over 16,000 ingredients that we exclude. By the way, the US, like the regulation only requires you to exclude 24. In the EU, it's 1,600, but for us, it's 16,000. And it's based on, again, actual health science. So not just like, it's not just about toxins. It's about things that have been shown to have hormonal activity.
Can I tell you, when I went through, after going through IVF and working in beauty for so long, when I started to dig into the amount of products that have hormone disruptors, it's terrifying. It's terrifying, really terrifying for women and men. It's and children, and that's we could go down that rabbit hole, but it's scary.
It is quite scary. And like, honestly, personally, I believe like what we're doing in what we call like hormone clean, but it's endocrine disruptor free, both in the formulas as well as the packaging. Because what people also don't realize is packaging is probably the #1 hormone disruptor you get through beauty products. Yeah, because it's plastic, which is BPA, and it's seeping into that product. And then you're putting that on your face twice a day or all over your body, etc. But not to mean to scare you, but like we believe like you're exposed to 85,000 chemicals every single day, many of which disrupt your hormones. We're not going to be able to avoid 85,000, right?
Right.
And it's not the interaction with any single one time that's going to make you infertile or send you into early menopause or mess up your skin. But it's this sort of like accumulation over time. So if you can make choices in the way you care for yourself every day that are also aligned with your health and your wellness and the other ways you're taking care of yourself, like why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that about like sulfates and parabens, one-time exposure isn't going to hurt you, but because all of our products for so long had them in them and we were being bombarded, that accumulation is what really becomes sort of damaging. So you've taken steps to make sure that your products are hormone clean, as you call them.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So like I said, we worked with our medical team and a PhD in hormonal health. And so it's any known or potential endocrine disrupting chemicals. So, for example, retinol is a hormone disruptor. Retinol can work, but we've created other alternatives that are proven to work, but are not going to, interfere with what your hormone and because your body can rebalance itself. Your body has amazing ability to heal itself. You just need to not get in the way. But yeah, so we're really excited to sort of pioneer that again, health science backed credibility when it comes to product safety.
So let's talk about this test, which you can see here. I wanted to make sure, I haven't tried it yet, although now I'm really dying to, because
yes.
What are we testing for here? Is this it's saliva? Can you tell us a little bit about what this test, what we're going to find out from it?
Yeah. So just to give you the background story, when I first created the company, I spoke with I think about 100 different doctors across these different practice areas. The initial question I just had was what can we learn from our bodies that's going to give us more information about our skin and health? And through that ended up creating our medical team, which I spoke about, and this test. And so we test for the 5 hormones related to your skin, aesthetic, and overall health. So that is estrogen, testosterone, progesterone, cortisol, and DHEA. And all you have to do is spit in that tube. After all the COVID testing, I think we're kind of more used to that and it's not painful. You mail it back, everything's already included. And then when your results are ready, you get an email, you log into your account, and you get to see your actual levels. So objectively, what is my estrogen? What is my cortisol, et cetera? Because we all think that we're stressed, but how is that biologically manifesting itself in your body? Then we provide personalized education and content on what that means for your aesthetic health, what it means for your overall health, as well as these, 360 lifestyle recommendations to help you treat the underlying root cause, like I said, from diet, sleep, exercise, stress management, et cetera, just to make it more real. A lot of for me personally, I had my daughter, she'll turn 1 next week, but postpartum, a lot of women, my hormones, and it was different from pregnancy to pregnancy, but this time my hormones are definitely off. And my skin was the driest that it's ever been. I was breaking out into kind of rosacea patches on my chest and other areas. So I did our hormone test and I learned I had low levels of hormones across the board, but especially my estrogen was the lowest it could possibly be. And that apparently is more common than it's well known that can happen because your body is sending all of its hormonal building blocks to create prolactin and breast milk. But then I was given, again, a few diet changes, exercise, and I started taking our Estrogen Revive supplement. And I was able to now my skin feels back to normal. I actually got my natural period back. So it's really, again, taking this holistic care. And I say it's you definitely don't have to test if you don't want to, or you don't need to know all that stuff, and you can shop the products individually. But it's just really nice to know your baseline, because if you don't know what's working against you, how are you supposed to solve it?
I have to say, well, I'm type A too. So for me, I love test everything. I want all the information. But from the reviews on your website, there were a number of people who were like, wow, I was able to test before taking the products and then test again. And it was interesting to see how my hormones had either balanced or changed. So I think that kind of adds a little bit of credibility to your product line.
Yeah. And we will be working on launching a retesting and basically ability to save money from testing multiple times, because your hormones do change over time. And that's the beauty of hormonal health too, because I think a lot of women we hear from, they're scared. And our medical system has made us scared. You feel like you're getting like a death sentence, like whether you get like your DNA or these other things. It just feels like you feel helpless because you are about to learn something and you feel like you can't do anything about it. But that's not the case with hormonal health. Like you can actually make changes pretty quickly with your hormonal balance. You can see women, particularly, you can see changes within as little as 28 days, and you can
Right.
see more real progress within about 3 menstrual cycles. So about 90 days.
You did bring up one interesting thing I want to ask. So this is different than DNA testing.
Totally different. So,
Okay.
hormones versus, DNA is what you're dealt with. Hormones will tell you what is actually happening in your body right now.
Okay. And is this information held safe? Are you selling to third parties? Because I feel like a lot of people now are afraid to give that information up.
Yes. No, that has been a priority for us as we are completely transparent with the data is only used for informational purposes for yourself. And then anything we learn from like how overall are people's hormones like working and how could we do better is all anonymized, never sold to a third party, etc.
Amazing.
Like,
Okay.
I honestly think like hopefully over time, like women's hormonal health has been so understudied.
Yeah.
Women weren't even required to be in medical studies until the 1990s, because it was like more work and more costly because they had to like adjust for, she's in day 14 of her cycle, she's in day 20 of her cycle, etc. But like, the reason we've all heard this narrative of like, oh, it's just hormonal, but it seems like a black box of like, what are you supposed to do if it's hormonal? That is not the way it needs to be. Like we should have answers and we deserve to have answers. And that's hopefully what will even be able to like enhance the recommendations, the knowledge for our customers and beyond over time.
I love that too, because especially now, we're starting to see a lot of brands finally bringing menopause into the conversation, something that's never happened before. And every woman who lives long enough to reach the menopause years, every woman is going to go through that as long as you live long enough.
Right.
So
That's the goal.
but it's incredible that it's been sort of like, shrouded in mystery for so long and sort of this taboo topic. So I'm really glad now that companies like yourself are bringing the hormones education to it, so that we feel comfortable talking about it. Because you're right, saying I'm hormonal used to have like really negative connotations, like, oh, she's
So
being
negative.
cranky or whatever. But it's like, no, my hormones that, at the base level, that's the most potent drug in the world, right? There's nothing that's going to affect your body like hormones. I want to be conscious of time here. If people are interested in your line, if they're interested in sort of getting involved, is there sort of like where they should start? Is there a product that you really swear by or?
Yeah. So the way we've constructed our product line is to have these, I think I mentioned, but the core essentials for balanced hormonal health and hormonal skin. So I'd recommend starting with, on the skincare side, our BioEvolve set. So that is our serum and our moisturizer. Yeah, I think you have them both there in the
Can I
background.
just say too, how beautifully they're packaged? This is gorgeous.
Thank you.
It really is.
Yeah.
It feels really high end and luxurious too.
Well, I believe that like it shouldn't be this like problem. It should be like how you're investing in yourself. And that's what we wanted to come through in the brand. But the serum will have all of your essential vitamins, nutrients, UV and blue light fighting, for hormonally balanced skin. And the moisturizer is that sort of like barrier protection to keep your, skin strong and balanced. And then on the supplement side, our BioEvolve multivitamin is specifically designed to give you the building blocks of hormones. So to even have balanced hormones in the first place. So it's over 30 nutrients, all peer-reviewed, therapeutic grade. It includes every B vitamin, which are, again, the B vitamins are what actually make hormones. So if without B vitamins, you cannot have balanced hormones. Thyroid support, which is specifically important for women. So selenium, iodine, and there's a lot of other stuff, but without going into detail. And then the trace minerals that actually help your body absorb those.
Sorry, what was the last thing you said? We just dropped out for a second.
Oh, sure. I could just start over.
No,
I'm not sure exactly.
you're good.
Okay.
It was just that last sentence that you said that we missed out on.
Oh, okay. So as long as as well as the trace minerals, so your body can actually absorb everything, all the other vitamins, and then our BioEvolve probiotic, which of course, like gut health is the latest thing that everyone is talking about. But what people don't understand is you cannot have a healthy gut without having balanced hormones. And what we see a lot, what happens, especially with all of these environmental toxins, is that people aren't able to effectively process hormones through the body. So you basically get like used hormones sitting in the gut, and then you can't have a healthy microbiome. So our probiotic has 100 billion active cultures and 6 specific strains targeted to help your body process and remove hormones.
Amazing. And you know what? This just blows my mind. I love living in this time where we're seeing such great science behind our health skincare. I appreciate brands like you sort of coming into the forefront and saying, hey, wait a minute, we've got to pay attention to our hormones and look at skincare and our overall health in a more holistic way, not just siloed into skincare, diet, fitness, but sort of looking at the total picture. You know, I would encourage everybody to go on your website. You have amazing blog articles and information there. If people want to find you, where can they go?
Sure. Please follow us on Instagram at Veracity Self-Care. Check out our website, veracityselfcare.com. Yeah, you could follow me, but I'm not as interesting. I'm Allie Egan on Instagram. And just want to spread the message and appreciate your support as well for our mission and what we're trying to do.
Always. I mean, listen, hormonal health is so important. And again, when you start to really look into some of those products from some pretty big companies, it can be a little scary, some of the things that they're letting to go in there. But that is a podcast for another time. I want to thank you so much for spending the time with us today, Allie. And for anybody who's listening at home, if you've got questions that you want to pass on to Allie's team, I'm always happy to do that for you. You can email me at hello@ArtBeautyPodcast. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Art Beauty Podcast. Allie, thank you so much. And as always, we will see you next Tuesday. Bye.
This was so fun, Amber. Bye.